Every so often, you'll be walking along the road, you'll be going through a shopping mall, looking through a window, and you'll say to yourself, why can't they make something beautiful? Something where the form and the function are both aligned, and the entire result is pleasing to the eye, and it's useful. Well, as you know, at AskOkey, we do our best to achieve this. Welcome to the AskOkey podcast. I'm very fortunate to have with me a man who probably needs some introduction, actually. Most of the time, you see me, and I say welcome, and you all know me, assistant cook, deputy, senior bottle washer at AskOkey. But today, I'm very fortunate to have with me Hashim, our head of, what are you head of, Hashim?
Head of design.
Head of design, okay. Head of design, but not only that, he does a lot of stuff which is not only related to design. So get your beverage poured, your coffee, if you're a blue lighter, your bourbon, or whatever it is else that you consume while you're watching the podcast, and we look forward to spending some time with Hashim.
Yes, sir.
The first time we've had you here.
Yes, yes.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
I mean, it's been in the works.
It's been in the works for about a year.
Yeah, no, hey. A lot changed in a year, Peter.
A lot changes.
I'm happy that we're doing it now.
Yes, indeed, yes. Exactly. We have more to talk about.
Absolutely.
More water under the bridge, as they might say. And that is, of course, an AskOkey suit.
Yes.
And those, I believe, are AskOkey socks.
Yes, these are one of our socks. These are yet to be released on the date of the podcast, but these are going to go live soon. These are our purple socks over the calf, of course. Yeah. And that's really, we try to include some variety in the socks,
But this is radical. This is radical for AskOkey.
I mean, yeah, maybe radical for PROFF. I don't know for me.
Well, going beyond the blue and the gray.
Right. Right. Yeah. We have a few core colors, but we try to keep everything, classic. The clothing team across the board.
Of course. So if you're a bishop, get ready, because we will have purple socks coming down the pipe for you.
Right.
And these are these the new thick winter socks, or are they just the regular?
No. All of our socks are thin. Thin. Not the super thin one, but just the middle weight. Yeah. So Egyptian cotton, handmade, hand-linked toe. All of them over the calf, so that they stay up all day long. And just a very practical, you can grab a bunch of pairs and just, keep them for life. That's really the idea of designing the socks, the color with just very, very classic shades. But we always introduce new options.
Yeah, sure. It's about every 3 months you come out with something new, isn't it?
We try to do new launches every quarter, just to keep some fresh products in the stream. Also because our customers are very demanding.
Yes.
So they have a lot of space to fill out. Once they once they see it.
Yeah, and when you're the head of design, you want to be designing.
Right. Ideally.
Yes. So you said they're made of Egyptian cotton. Now, what is it about Egyptian cotton? I mean, I've read about it. There was a blog post about it. What is it about Egyptian cotton that's so sought after?
Well, I would try to avoid being patriotic, Peter, but let me be objective. When I'm speaking about it, which is very hard. Because I'm from Alexandria. So it's a very emotional subject for me. But really, Egyptian cotton, there's 2 levels to it, I would say. So Egyptian cotton is mostly used either in shirting or in accessories where it needs to wick moisture. So it's very common that you find Egyptian cotton underwear, or briefs for a gentleman. I personally use Egyptian cotton, like very high quality. So either garments that wick a lot of moisture or for shirts.
Yeah.
And the beauty of Egyptian cotton is 2 things. One, the yarns are very long. It's called an extra long staple, ELS. And there's the Egyptian Cotton Association, which is an international, committee that sort of quality controls and makes sure that if the Egyptian cotton you're buying is real.
Really?
Or if it's a knockoff, it's very,
wow.
It's very easy, to try to knock off and try to mix it with microfiber or whatever, but that's how it is. But really 2 characteristics of Egyptian cotton. One, it's very, very soft to the touch. And because of the long staples, the long threads of the yarn, you can make a very long thread, and what that does is that it creates less disturbances in the fabric.
Okay.
So when you touch it, when it's finally done and woven and you touch it, it feels almost like a silk.
Yeah.
Because it's very smooth.
Okay.
And the thing is that silk overheats. You know, you would feel hot in silk, but cotton is actually the opposite. It sucks the moisture and it keeps you cool. You know, so both of those characteristics together, that's really what makes, you know, Egyptian cotton what it is. And we use for our shirts, you know, the highest quality Egyptian cotton, Giza Egyptian cotton, Giza 92, you know, and Giza 45, which
this is Carlo Rivera.
Carlo Riva.
Carlo Riva.
Yeah.
So he uses Egyptian cotton.
Yes. All of our fabrics are Egyptian cotton or linen, which we get from, you know, Spence Bryson or a few other makers.
Yeah. So the Egyptian cotton is actually graded.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And is all Egyptian cotton from Egypt?
Well, you know, there's not to get technical, there's a species of the plant. But if you were to go down to Egypt, Peter, you know, I would invite you down, and then we go and you snatch a few seedlings and you package them and you take them, you know, to another country.
Yeah.
And you were to grow them. That plant will never have the same characteristics of Egyptian cotton that's grown in Egypt because of the climate, you know, and the conditions
to really
make it, and the water as well. And also just the conditions around everything that make it so that it can grow and it can actually give you, you know, the actual fruit, you know, the actual cotton, the cotton yarn, and then it gets processed, you know. But it's been improving lately, you know. It was a bit of a downturn. Yep.
Interesting, and of course it's been around for pretty much as long as people have been around in Egypt. You know, you see those pictures in those drawings in the pyramids, and they're wearing those sort of lungis,
loincloths.
Loincloths, and those I presume were made of Egyptian cotton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or linen. Or
linen, possibly.
Linen is very famous back in the day. You know.
Is there a lot of linen production in Egypt as well?
There is linen, but it's not known for linen.
Okay.
You know, you'd usually go elsewhere for linen, but it's mainly the cotton. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Egyptian cotton, everybody.
Yes.
And if you get an AskOkey shirt, it's Giza 92, not 91 or 93. I think that's the important
Well, it depends.
point.
It depends. The number signifies the length of the.
Okay.
So there's 45, which is the highest quality, and then the one that's a little bit even higher quality is Giza 92. Those are the two. Then there's 89, and there's many more, you know, denominations. But we use a bunch of different. But it's all Giza cotton.
Interesting, and it's all refined, spun, and treated in Egypt, and they make the fabric in Egypt.
Yeah, so some of our makers, it's actually woven in Italy, so they got the raw material.
Okay, they got the raw stuff.
You know, because the Italians are really known for their color, you know, and their dyeing.
Yep.
So if you look at Italian silks, very vibrant, very vivacious.
There we are.
Like the pocket square that you're wearing.
Well, I was going to say, not wanting to drift off to the topic, but this is an AskOkey tie, and this is an AskOkey square.
Absolutely.
And then you've got an AskOkey.
Yes.
I think we've got the same one.
We have the same one.
Aha, exactly. There we are.
It's a fun, fun coincidence.
Yes, but you've got the maroon tie.
This is the maroon.
And I've got the navy tie, which was missing from the podcast that Prof and I did about ties. We looked at the orange one and the bright blue.
Right.
And it does, you're right, it has a very, very powerful orange
floral motif.
Floral motif, and you've actually got brown, light brown, and orange in there.
Right.
Yes. So they buy the cotton yarn from Egypt, ship it up to Italy, and weave it there. Right. Interesting. So you've got, everybody, Egyptian cotton shirts from AskOkey and Egyptian cotton socks. So you're fully fitted out with Egyptian cotton as and when you need to. Hashim, how did you get into designing? Tell us a bit about this, because we've never had you on the podcast. People know that you exist because they've sort of heard about you.
Exactly.
And they've seen you on a couple of reels. But how did you get into designing particularly?
Well, really, I've always been a fan of classical tailoring and a fan of, you know, it's not to do with genetics, you know, but I liked architecture. You know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was interested in the beauty of proportion.
Yep.
And the way that things are, and I was sort of curious, but I really wasn't trained as a designer. I was sort of pulled into it, you know, or by the universe, you know.
Right.
Whatever.
Yes.
The
forces.
Or whatever. Yeah, the forces beyond me.
AKA the prof. Yes.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But really, it just came out of a very strong attraction to beauty. That's really where, you know, if I'm being honest, that's really what pulled me. I was trained in media
Right.
I was trained as, you know, as a journalist and as a writer. Really, that's my training.
Yeah.
And I really have no professional, you know, like accreditation to be a designer.
Right.
It's just mostly a passion that I've had. And, you know, if I may quote, you know, Sir Isaac Newton, if I can see further than others, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
You know, so
yes,
I've had some incredible mentorship, you know, by PROFF.
There is that, but that can only take, if you don't have a particular interest in it, that can only take you so far. So you got into it because you like to do it, and there was an opportunity to do it.
Absolutely. And I've always liked, you know, creating something with my own hands and sort of understanding how, you know, the dichotomy of things work in terms of shapes, you know, in terms of proportion, you know. So now it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of hard to control. You know, like now just looking at your suit, I'm sort of all kinds of ideas are coming, you know, into my mind that I'm maybe judging or critiquing.
I can imagine.
You know, the balance of it, but you know.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you and Tim do that sometimes when you'll see a picture of a garment or somebody's wearing something, and right away you'll pick up on certain things.
Sticks out like a sore thumb if there's anything wrong, you know, or if we were to change something, you know. But yeah, you develop an eye for it, you know, the more you do it. Of course.
Yeah, so it's about, for example, if it's the proportions of a jacket or a whole suit, I suppose it could be the proportions of a car.
Yes.
The shape of a car, or the shape of a bottle, or the shape of a building or something.
Right.
Is it sort of the same thing?
It's exactly the same thing, because it comes down to the same principles, Pete, you know. So you know, I'm a man of faith, so I believe the designer is God himself. So my job as a designer is really just to bring out the innate beauty that already exists. You know, I'm not doing anything new. You know, I'm not really, you know, creating something.
You're not inventing it.
I'm not inventing anything new. No. It's mostly me just understanding where things should be placed and in what way and in what proportion. You know, so it's the proportions, it's the silhouette, it's the line, it's the balance. You know, you sort of hear these words, but it's sort of like architecture, you know, sort of understanding how different things play out. But it could be in anything, you know, in a door, in shoes, you know, in high-end shoes or in suits. But it's really just whatever looks pleasing to the eye and what fits the design principles that I.
And what are those?
You know, there's a few core principles of design that are commonplace. If you look at, you know, history, if you look at old Victorian architecture, if you look at, you know, old buildings or old cars, you know, classic cars, they look a lot more attractive than what you see today. You know, most of the time. Mainly because the way they've been designed, from the blueprint, from the idea, it is designed to fulfill a purpose and to create an effect. You know, so if you were, you know, if you were looking at a bedroom, the way it's designed, it sort of pulls you in, or it makes it easier, you know, to go into the bedroom or something. It really serves the purpose. That's really where it comes from. And what I've seen, you know, in just designs in modernity, you know, not just buildings, but also like cars and different stuff, we've lost that utility, or the purpose of it. You know, so if you stand in Luxor, you know, in Egypt, you'll see that there's a lot of passageways around, you know, the ruins, and you'll find that in the middle of the summer, there's a huge current of wind that's sort of pushed through the corridors, and you're getting this lovely breeze.
So there's a reason for it, in other words.
And there's a reason for it. It's the architecture of the actual field or the actual corridor that you're in. You know, it's sort of maneuver. So there's this language that's sort of been lost, you know. Over the years.
So it's not that form has to follow function, or the other way around. They've got to fit together. They've got to work together
because a proper form fulfills the function. That's sort of what it is. So a design fulfills the purpose if it actually fulfills the effect that I'm trying to achieve with it, you know. A lot of people say, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, you know. That's not really what we're talking about.
No.
It's mostly, does this design fulfill the effect and the result that we want to do?
Now, how do you apply that to, for example, the MTM or the bespoke work that we do at AskOkey?
Well, for the bespoke, what's interesting is that we start from a base pattern that's completely from scratch.
Right.
You know, so the pattern is this human being that I'm building the pattern around. You know, it's just a piece of paper that we make for this specific individual. So what excites me, Peter, is that every time we have a new commission, you know, or a customer gets something new, it's sort of fun because I'm exploring this person's identity on paper. You know, and I'm seeing the, you know, the nooks and the crannies and the little details that make it this customer's garment, you know. And really, there's nothing wrong with the individual themselves. What I'm trying to do is to create the pattern so that it, one, fits them, and it sustains the effect that works best for them and their preference and their style and their body type.
Right,
you know.
right.
So what I'm doing is really taking the core design principles of proportion, you know, silhouette, you know, using our drape cut, which exists in our drape cut, and I'm applying it to their body and seeing how this interpretation looks on their body.
Yeah, okay.
Because not everybody looks like Proff or like
no,
me
indeed.
Or like you.
No.
You know, so my job is to really make sure that these core principles are fulfilled and they fulfill the effect on this individual.
Right, okay. Yes, yes. And fulfill the effect that he wants or that you think he should have.
Or that I think he should have, yes.
That you think he should have, yes. So there's a bit of mastery there.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
You know, if let's say there's a short gentleman, me just using design principles of balance and silhouette or the golden ratio or rule of thirds, I can make this gentleman who might be, you know, 5 foot look much taller, much leaner, much more masculine, you know, when he wears his garment.
Sure.
I can make somebody who's tall sort of, you know, play down their height.
Yeah. Or if he's very tall and thin.
Or very tall and
bulk
thin.
him up a bit.
Or if he has a very thin face or a very wide face, you know, or a circular face, you kind of play around with a few details in the design that completely changes how they look.
Even though you're always making the same thing, which is a jacket and a pants, or a jacket, an odd jacket. So even though you've got those constraints, so you've got to have 2 arms, right? It's got a button down the front. So there's certain limitations on your creativity. Even though it's the same thing, you can still build in all kinds of differences.
Right, yeah, but you know, it is the same thing in spirit. I mean, it's still a jacket. But if you look at it from the, you know, from the proportions or the different elements that you have to balance, it's a completely different thing.
Yes.
You know, so some customers that we have, they're over 300 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, so when you're of that scale, the way that we do your trouser has to be completely different. Or the way that we do your jacket is a little bit different. It's still the same garment, it's still cut the same way and still stitched. But the proportions and the effect that I'm trying to achieve come into play, and that's where I really put in the work to make sure, and that's why we do multiple test of fits to make sure that it actually, you know, fits their body and that it works for them and it fulfills the effect.
What can't you redo?
Well, there's some things in a jacket that once it's cut, it's cut. You know, you really can't change anything. And if it gets to that level where, you know, I mean, it hasn't happened before for us, and I don't see it happening. But if there's a mistake or an issue in a garment where, let's say, the armhole is far too big, or the armhole, you know, is a different shape, for example. We'll just remake the coat. You know, no questions asked. I mean, we'll just remake it because he deserves a properly fitting garment. But there's a few details, you know, that once it's cut, you really can't. You really can't fix anymore. You know, shortening the sleeves, lengthening the coat, increasing the size in the waist or the chest a little bit. That's very possible. That's very simple. You know, but changing anything in the shape of the garment, or changing maybe the height of the gorge, or the buttoning point,
or enlarging the armhole, for example, might be a bit difficult.
Yeah, I mean, you could cut a bigger armhole. That is possible, but that's not ideal because you'll have to fit the sleeve around it, and then it's a different thing. And then, you know, because the armhole is connected to the chest, everything interlinks. You know.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I remember Proff talking about that once. That it's all just as the body is interlinked, so the garment you can't just make separate pieces and glue them together or stitch them together.
And you can make individual changes and then expect it not to affect, the overall thing.
Indeed.
But I would say anything in the shoulders, which is a very sensitive area in a jacket, the armhole or the buttoning point or the collar, those 4 elements, if something is critically wrong, I would remake the jacket.
Okay.
I don't even think it's worth like trying to fix. Because if those core elements are not 100%, the code's going to be off no matter what you do.
But then, besides being on the design side, you're also with the tailoring team, aren't you?
Right.
So I think you get quite closely involved in the workshop with the guys there. So you would probably pick up at the pattern stage if something was off.
Absolutely. No, I review every single customer pattern, including your garments.
Thank you.
You're in safe hands.
I'm in safe hands.
Yes, absolutely. So every pattern that gets made, I review the pattern once it's in the pattern stage. And if it pleases me and it passes our quality check, then it proceeds into the test of fit,
Okay.
But let's say there's something off balance or something incorrect in the design. I have to change it and fix it at the pattern stage.
Right.
Because there's no point in doing the trial if it's going to be off.
No, indeed.
Not just the stylistics, but the proportions and the balance of the coat. So if I see that, the button is misaligned with the pocket, for example, the bottom button, or if the buttoning point is off, we go back immediately to the chalkboard.
Right.
And we fix everything. In this case, the pattern room, and we draft up a new pattern fixing those details right from the start.
So you get it right at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And then the rest of it flows. Interesting. Everybody, pause for a word from our sponsor and station identification. Are you the best dressed man in the room wherever you go? If not, why not? It's not that difficult. AskOkey makes bespoke suits, jackets, trousers, and other garments for discerning men all over the world. So next time you look around and feel that you're not quite presentable, give us a call, send us a mail, or send us a direct message on the social media channels, and we'll kit you up to look like a king. Bye for now. Welcome back. Hope you had the opportunity to refresh yourself during the little break there. Once again, I always say a word from our sponsors, but you are the sponsors. So don't forget, like and subscribe, and you'll be helping us to continue our journey in the wonderful world of menswear. So Hashim, you were talking about fixing the pattern, doing the trial, getting it closer towards the finished product. What's the hardest part of the whole train of activities?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a specific part that's harder than the other because it's all one process.
Right.
So when I'm drafting a pattern, I really have to be focused on the individual that I'm drafting the pattern for, their preferences and what they would look best in, knowing what would work. So usually when we meet for a consultation, so for me to actually be able to do this, I have to know the customer very well. And I have to know their body even better, to know what works for them. And then based on that, I can make that decision to interpret their bespoke pattern in this way or in another way, to give them a bigger chest, to extend their shoulders a little bit more, to trim up their waist. All these different details come into play. I would say the most critical part would be the pattern making stage.
Okay.
Because that is where you really get the starting base for what's going to be their bespoke garment. And then we go through the thorough fitting process, and then we can iron out any details,
Even though the test of fit garment is made of sort of nylon or something.
Muslin, yes.
So it doesn't hang quite the way a real garment will.
Right.
But it's reliable.
It's not, the purpose of that garment isn't to see how it drapes, but to see the fit and the individual proportions and the way that it sits, So when I'm looking at a test of fit, so our clients that send their TOF images to me in the clothing team, what we do is that we review not just the drape of it and see how it's falling or how the jacket or trousers are hanging, and if they're hanging in the way that we want. It's mostly for one, the design, if it fits them and if it works with their body type. The proportions, the balance, and the silhouette that we're trying to achieve, really. Yeah. Because we know that this isn't an accurate representation of how the fabric is gonna hang. You know, we're used to it so that we know that it's actually gonna be a little bit more full. You know, so sometimes you'll see in the muslin, you know, you've went through the process as well as I have. If it's a little bit loose in the chest, you know, and you're sort of second guessing, I mean, is it a little bit too big? You know, but it's actually not, because we're doing that on purpose. You know,
so you know that it's going to be fine, or it's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, whereas the customer won't.
No,
so
I mean,
he might think it's too big, and you'll say no, it isn't, and so forth. Yeah, I guess is this just or is this largely a matter of your experience and Tim's experience of doing this?
It's mostly the clothing team's experience, and also us knowing what's going to work for this specific client and this specific, you know, commission, you know, or how we want it to fit. For example, if I'm designing a more casual coat, it's totally fine to go a little bit shorter in the jacket, because that works with the fabric, it works with how they're going to wear it, it works with the formality of the garment, you know. But if I was designing, let's say, you know, a pinstripe three-piece suit, you can make them a little bit of a longer jacket and it's going to work for the same individual, for the same person. So it's not just only the person and, you know, their specific mood that day or their body. It's also the use case of the garment. You know, is it a business suit? Are they going to wear it on the beach? Are they going to wear it, you know, 10 times a year or just once a year?
Or just once a year,
Exactly.
And how do you transition this sort of work, which is really tied to the bespoke process and the bespoke concept? How do you transition this to the MTM line? Because as you know from seeing, and I've been seeing some photographs recently, we've managed to get an MTM cut that looks suspiciously like an AskOkey suit.
Well, I wouldn't say suspicious, because it's the same company.
Well, no, but it looks suspiciously like the bespoke garments. Now, obviously, if you look at it really closely, it's not. If you're wearing it, you could probably tell that it isn't. Although I haven't asked Tim if he really knows when he's wearing it that it's MTM or bespoke. But I know a lot of people, I think, are doubtful about MTM because they figure it's just sort of ready to wear, but you order it. But how did you manage to get those design principles and that very successful approach into the made-to-measure when you don't have the luxury of seeing the customer in the same way or drafting a pattern for him?
Or going through the trial process.
Or going through the trial process.
The test of fit. Well, you know, Tim, our head of clothing, he was stationed in Japan for this specific purpose to make sure, you know, the first batch of orders, you know, is done to our standard, and also to develop the pattern, because MTM is a completely different animal than bespoke.
Right,
You know, in terms of operating it and in terms of the actual product itself. You know, to the layman, it just looks like a suit. You know, it definitely carries the exact same DNA of our bespoke, and it's inspired by our bespoke. And really, you know, from 10 feet away, for the average person, it would be hard to tell whether this is MTM or AskOkey bespoke. You know, it would be very difficult for them to tell, unless, you know, they work in the company or they're very familiar with it. It really, the difference comes between the use of the garment and also when you put it on, you're going to feel the difference. You know, so my MTM suit feels completely different than my current bespoke. Given this is double-breasted, my MTM is single-breasted. But you can definitely feel the weight of the canvas is different. The looseness of the canvas is much more fluid because it's not machine stitched, it's hand stitched.
Right,
so it's handmade. So the canvas is fully floating. We use a full canvas on our MTM as well, but it's stitched by machine.
So the jacket feels a bit stiffer, does it?
Feels a little bit more rigid. You know, it's still very sturdy, very high quality. A little bit more rigid, and when you wear it over time, it doesn't mold as much as the bespoke would across your chest, you know. So for me, really, the joy of seeing a bespoke suit is seeing a bespoke suit that's old. Because I know for a fact that this time that he's wearing it, it gets better every time that he wears it, you know.
Interesting.
So a bespoke suit at 10 years old would fit and feel even better than when he got it the first day.
Interesting.
You know, that's really the value for bespoke for me. But in terms of the pattern, it's different, Peter. Just to answer your question, for bespoke, every single commission has a bespoke pattern for that client.
Sure.
It's completely made from scratch for that individual. For MTM, we develop the master pattern.
Right.
And then we make our adjustments and we assess all the details of their posture, the way they sit, their body type, their weight, their height, and then we draft their pattern, and then we fulfill the order and create the garment.
Okay.
We don't have the luxury of going through the whole fitting process. You know, so Tim did a phenomenal job at making the patterns and sort of mimicking the DNA interpreted into the MTM, because it really is a completely different animal. You know, because you have the base pattern, and then if any detail you'd like to change on the customer garments, you have to go back to that master pattern to make a difference. You know? You're not working with an individual booklet. You know, you're working with a Bible. You know, and then you know you have to change something in the big book to do it.
So if you start with the master pattern, that's designed for a sort of averagely shaped man, I presume. So then, if somebody comes in, he's got very wide shoulders or very sloping shoulders or something, you can, I suppose, adjust that master pattern a little bit.
Absolutely.
But there must be a limit to what you can do with it.
Well, we have quite a range.
Okay.
You know, so I would say 99% of men would be able to get a perfectly fitting MTM suit from us. You know, I would even say, you know, it's gonna fit amazing for, you know, 99% of the customers that get it. Really, we do have a lot of control over the pattern, but not nearly as much as bespoke. So for bespoke, I would say there's the attention to the tinier details. Those tinier details we can change. You know, so the height of the gorge, the width of the lapel, the angle of the lapel. You know, whether you want it more bellied, for a double breasted, or you want it more sharp. You know, the angle of the lapel, the way that you want it. The smaller details that are sort of mini portraits of what I would want them to look in a design. These things I can control with bespoke. But with MTM, you know, of course, at that price, there's a limit to what you can get.
There is a limit. So when we have, for example, the 2-button MTM jackets that we use for the suits and the other jacket, if you want a much higher button or a much lower button, it's going to be a bit of a problem because you've really got to go with what we have.
We can do it if it's a request, but it depends on the proportions. We won't do it to the point where it becomes, you know, unwearable.
Exactly.
Or it becomes extreme. You know, you can move a buttoning point slightly, you know, by half an inch or 3/4, because particularly, you know, since you mentioned the buttoning point of the jacket is what the fulcrum is to the seesaw. If it's a little bit off, the entire front of the coat looks off. You know, to my eye and to any person that's, you know, that's used to tailoring.
No, I get it. I get it.
So, you know, but we can adjust for these small details in the MTM, you know, but within reason, of course. You know, if we think that it's not going to look good, immediately, you know, we tell the client, like, listen, this is not a bad idea. You know.
Right. And the way you make the coat or the trouser in the MTM shop is going to be a little bit different because, as you said, it's made by machines. So, but there's still humans running the machines.
Of course, no. There's highly experienced operators. Made in Japan. These guys are extremely experienced. You know, they've been doing tailoring for decades. You know, longer than I've been alive. You know, so when we say made by machine, they are operating a machine.
This is the thing.
To do it. But really, Peter, I would say the difference is in the smaller details in the hand finishing. You can really feel it once you wear it. You know, the difference between the MTM and the bespoke.
Interesting.
So it is machine finished. It's a little bit more rigid. It's a little bit more, you know, straightforward. It's not as dynamic as our bespoke. You know. So if you have a very weird or very odd shaped body, you can still get MTM, but you know, if you're getting my advice, I would definitely push you to get it bespoke, because that's really where you can develop something from scratch.
You
know, that's made for them. instead of trying to fit into the pattern and we sort of adjust it.
Okay, interesting, and useful because the MTM products are coming off the assembly line now. Yes. Well, assembly line, they're coming out of the factory now. I know that a couple of people have received theirs, and really the outline, as you said, the effect is really quite strikingly similar to some of our AskOkey customers, bespoke customers, who don't have really exaggerated. Yes. Some of them have really exaggerated looking jackets, right. But those who have the more standard shape, the MTM is there. Now what haven't you designed yet that you're looking forward to working on? Is there any particular garment that you haven't had a chance yet to get your teeth into?
Well, we've been very busy, lately. So there's a lot of things that I'd like to design more. I mean, we have the 3-piece suits, we have the double-breasted suits. We have everything that one would need, if you're building a classic wardrobe. Right. Formal and casual. But really what I see us growing in is the variety of the different designs in the suits. Sure. So, for example, making more of a 4-button coat or like a chore coat. Maybe dabbling a little bit more into the casual side of things. Because really for me, a bespoke suit is essential. But you really get to have fun with bespoke when you start doing separates. You start doing odd combinations. So maybe dabbling a little bit more into the casual items. I mean, I'm not gonna release my secrets now.
Right, there we are.
You'll have to make me sign a few papers about.
Did you work on PROFF's Safari? Because we featured that on a couple of podcasts.
I designed the Safari myself.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. There we go.
So we went through a few iterations of the Safari until I got a product that I felt, meets our standard and fulfills the sort of aesthetic that I want to do. And we make these decisions on sort of the placement of the pocket, the way that it's shaped, the extension of the shoulder while we're doing the fitting, and that's really where most of the work is put in. Just to get that base pattern started so that we have a reference. Yes. Of what the design would be like.
And then you can perfect it in the next versions that you make before it's launched, as it were. Absolutely. Onto the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, well, we have a prototype. So the process of a bespoke garment, when I get an idea, I usually derive inspiration from existing things, like all the masters, like Frederick Schultz. And looking back into the masters of, proportion, looking at the principles and trying to see how can I actually execute this idea. Yes. So I gather my inspiration and then I go down to the pattern room where I draft the first initial pattern. I sketch a lot, so I'll show you after the episode some of my sketches.
Okay, so you hand sketch them?
Yeah, I hand sketch them because it's just an idea in my head. Yeah. And I sort of play around with it to see, does it actually, does it fulfill its own purpose, does it hold its own weight? Yeah. And then once I do the sketch, I sort of get the idea, I get some inspiration, and then I do the first pattern. Right. And then I print the entire pattern, the paper pattern for the garment, and I sort of pin it up to see how it's gonna look like. Ah. And then any changes that I'd like to do, just rough, broad strokes to do, I apply them at that stage before going on to the first TOF.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. And then from the first TOF, that's where we really start the fitting process and also looking at the balance, the proportions, the details, and the final aesthetic details that are going to go on the coat. Exactly.
So, that being the case, Hashim, it's a little difficult then for somebody else, for example, to see one on Instagram and just say, oh, I'm going to run one up. Because you wouldn't know how to put it together. You'd have to be able to make a pattern to start with, which I take it not everybody can do. And then you'd have to be able to execute that pattern. Now, you were saying, for example, looking at Frederick Schott's patterns. Yes. Or reading those old tailoring books. Right. Where they describe how they do it.
Books, yes.
Oh, yes. Incredible detail in there. Just incredible detail. Right. Being able to execute that, I take it, is not something that everybody can do.
No, it's very difficult, and it's even more difficult when you have a cut like ours.
Right. Okay.
So if you're doing like a very unstructured, very casual jacket, you just need to just barely stitch it and it's just hanging there. Yeah, it's much easier. But when you're developing a pattern like our drape cut, it's a difficult thing to pull off because what I'm essentially doing, I'm building a cut around a person's unique proportions. And for me to be able to do that, I don't need to have just a perfect pattern to start with, or something that is close to perfect, and I'll iron out the details on the garment. I need to properly understand the details of the principles and how to apply them while I'm fitting the actual
While
person.
fitting the customer.
While I'm fitting the customer, and when we're actually going into the prototype stage, you know.
Wow.
Because I can easily take my pattern that I create, Peter, and if I give it to, you know, a random tailor, he can make a suit out of it, but it's going to be nothing like our garments, because you need to have that vision of fulfilling it. You know, I can give you a DIY manual.
Right.
DIY manual for a BMW. You know, and I give you all the parts, and I can give you, you know, as many videos or as many tutorials as you want. You know, I'd be very surprised if you give me a Series 7 by the time that you're done building it.
Indeed. Well, it's like cooking. I mean, people buy recipe books and then they watch chefs doing it on the television and so forth on YouTube, but it never comes out quite the same.
No.
And I guess it's a similar thing. Of course, we forget that a garment is ultimately a matter. I mean, Prof says this all the time. He says it's a matter of physics.
Yes.
You know, you're pulling here and you're sort of stretching there and so forth. So it's all about being able to do that so that it doesn't lose those design principles. Because one of the things I noticed was that when you walk past a shop and you see a suit hanging on a mannequin, and you think, oh, that looks really quite well, doesn't it? You know, look at that. Oh, very strong chest and good shoulders and not a wrinkle anywhere. And you get it. When you start just walking around and moving around in it, it doesn't quite look the same, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, Peter. Because that's a different discipline. You know?
Yes.
A very good designer can design a very good jacket, but it takes an actual tailor to fit a jacket that's properly designed on a person. You know. So really, my goal, really, you know, what makes me happy is being able to take a really beautiful design, creating it for somebody and making it functional.
And that's where you work with the tailors.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's not enough to draft it.
No, I mean, that's half the battle.
And then you sit with the tailors, or you sit with them, but you are with them while they're doing it.
I'm in the workshop every day, you know.
Right,
so
okay.
Every single order that we get passes through my eyes at least, 4 or 5 times. You know, if not a pattern stage, then the trial, and then the final, and then seeing if the tailors are actually taking into account what we need for the specific client, you know, and you can see the results on our social media. You know, they've been very happy.
You can.
Sir.
And what's astounding is that you can repeat it. You repeat it with different people, because it's one thing through sheer luck to be able to produce something great once, but to be able to keep doing it, as you said, for all those different sorts of people.
Right.
So it's not one pattern and then we'll tweak it. It's each time you do it, you're doing it. And you've been with AskOkey now for what, about 2 years?
Yeah,
a bit more than 2 years?
Little under 3 years. Yeah,
little under 3 years.
Yeah. Time flies, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Yes.
Because when you started, I don't think you were doing your design work yet.
No,
I think you sort of got into it.
I grew into it mostly. You know.
What did you start doing?
Well, you know, I started with, first of all, understanding our current designs first and foremost. You know, suspending. You know, people that follow us on the Instagram stories could see, you know, a little bit of a younger version of me, just, you know, following Prof around the workshop and trying to understand, you know, really our DNA and our ethos, you know, with the design and sort of the ideas. So I was mainly, you know, checking the garments and making sure they're up to our standard. So quality control, which is a very important part of our bespoke, it's critical, you know, for every single stage. And then I slowly got started into the design. Once I got a good grasp of our DNA and what aesthetic we're actually trying to achieve, you know, and then slowly I sort of usurped, you know, the entire design room, and every single customer now, you know, they have to deal with me, you know, to get their garment, you know.
And is the style that we're famous for now, and I think when people ask for AskOkey, is it call for AskOkey, it's because of the style, isn't it? You buy the style and you wear the comfort, as you might say.
Yes.
But was this a style that you favored before you joined us?
Well, I was a follower a long time before I became
really,
a member.
were you? Okay.
You know, I was there from the early days. But it really stood out to me. That's what I would say. My first impression was like, okay, this is a little bit different.
Yeah, indeed it is, yes.
I kind of like where this is going. I wasn't sold on the full cut yet.
Right.
You know, because I was still, you know, I've had my drain pipe trouser phase.
Have you? Okay, yes.
I don't want to get into it today, Peter. You know, maybe that's for another, you know, behind the scenes episode. You know, but really I was attracted to the design and to the aesthetic, and it really pulled me in, and that's really what got me curious into understanding. You know, full cut. You know, it's not what I thought it used to be. You know?
Yes.
And now slowly, if you've noticed, Peter, full cut is becoming, you know, now the norm. You know,
it's getting more mainstream. As Quentin Crisp said, if you're an outsider, you just wait, and gradually the perimeter expands, and you find that you're in. You know, interesting. And I wanted to ask you something, but we don't have time for it, so we'll do it next time. Thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed it. And don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave us. We look forward to being with you next time. Thank you very much, Hashim.
Thank you, Peter.
Great pleasure having you. Cheerio.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Take care.